Hello folks, this is Sullla once again. We're going to be looking at the newest patch for League of Legends 3.15. This is a much smaller patch than the last one, where the patch note video was like 90 minutes long, so this one will be a lot shorter. There's just not nearly as much in this. The last patch was the rollout for the beginning of Season 4, even though it's not called Season 4 yet. It should really have been patch 4.1, but whatever. In any case, it was really the beginning of Season 4, or at least pre-season Season 4, and there were massive changes in the gameplay. This one is more refining the changes in the last patch, so the changes are a lot more minor. Let's go ahead and cycle through these. It even says right here that Riot's generally happy with how things are going, and their goal today isn't to introduce a lot of new changes. Alright, so matchmaking changes. These are relatively minor, but right here, apparently they introduced loss prevented for hardware connection issues. Apparently people were getting loss prevented, but it wasn't showing up on the screen. It was showing up as a defeat even when they got loss prevented from some kind of disconnecting or server issues. So anyway, that's been fixed, and now it should show up correctly as loss prevented. Changes to the matchmaking algorithm. New players will now have their appropriate skill level identified faster in the matchmaking system. Hopefully that's useful for low-level players who go up against people who are smurfing or create extra accounts just to screw around. I guess that's a nice fix. And then fixed a rare bug where matchmaking would create imbalanced matches where players were in the queue for a very long period of time. Relatively minor thing there, probably more useful for something like Team Ranked 5s where you can sit in queue for ages and ages and ages. Alright, relatively minor changes. General, temporary attack speed buffs now update champions' attack speed immediately rather than after the first attack. So in other words, if you get an attack speed buff, well, there's tons and tons of attack speed buff abilities in the game, but basically now it happens immediately rather than after your first auto attack. So I guess that's kind of nice. And then this damage amplification abilities no longer work on true damage. Basically what this means is it affects Ignite. So Poppy's ultimate, if anybody's still out there playing Poppy. Swain's Torment, this is Swain's E. This is one of the more important versions of this change. Excuse me. Wow. Start recording and immediately sneeze. Lovely. And then finally Talon with his Cutthroat ability. All of these will no longer get a damage amplification on Ignite, basically. So it means that these champions have slightly lower burst potential because Ignite won't benefit from their damage amplification. Not sure this change was really needed, and none of these three are especially strong or powerful champions. It's a very minor nerf to all of them, which seems kind of strange because none of them are very popular or have particularly high win rates. So it seems like kind of a strange time to do this change, but not all that important. Okay, on to the champion changes. Yasuo, the new champion, is out in this patch. Yasuo is a very complicated champion, as far as I can see. My best piece of advice regarding Yasuo is watch the champion spotlight if you haven't seen it already. His stuff is quite complicated to be used. Almost all of his abilities have like 2 or 3 different functionalities to them. He seems like a very high skill cap champion. My personal impression of this champ, just based on the very limited amount that I've seen, is when he initially comes out, which is right now, he's been out for like 1 day as I record this. When he first comes out, a lot of people are going to say, this guy's terrible, he stinks, blah, blah, blah. Just due to his playstyle, he's a very fragile champion, and he has sort of a very high skill cap. I have the impression that after about 2 to 3 weeks, once people have had a chance to get used to his abilities, I think that he will be a very strong champion indeed. He reminds me a lot of Zed. When Zed first came out and people said Zed was terrible. Reminds me also quite a bit of Riven in terms of the fact that he is monolith, is solely cooldown based, and is based on chaining skills together. I'll just highlight his abilities here. Basically, passive, really interesting passive here. His crit strike chance is doubled. Then his damage dealt by crit strikes is reduced by 10%. Wow, whoop-de-doo. He gets double crit strike chance. So you only need to hit 50% to max out crit strike chance. That's pretty amazing. And then he has this unique resource called Flow, whereby it builds up as he moves around the map. When the flow meter fills up, when he takes damage, he gets a temporary shield that absorbs damage for 2 seconds. So that's actually pretty nice passive as well. And here, this is how much flow he gets. At level 18, it's 650. So he get a 650 damage shield for 2 seconds when it's full. Now, granted, you have to fill up the meter, but that's still a pretty nice passive. And then his Q seems to be his most common skill. I'm pretty sure everyone will level this up first. Basically, it's a line skill shot. When he tosses this out, it does damage in like a straight line, 475 unit line. If cast while dashing, area of effect is changed to a 375 radius circle. Again, no mana, no, purely cooldown based, starts at 6 seconds down to 4. I have a feeling this may get increased in the future because 4-second cooldown, pretty darn low. With cooldown reduction, that could get down to, what, about 2.5 seconds. That's pretty ridiculous. Also, note the scaling here, plus 100% AD. Yeah, scales 1-to-1 with AD. Feels a little strong, I have to say. First cast, straight line skill shot. Second cast, same thing. Third skill cast, shoots out a whirlwind. Basically the same thing, straight line skill shot, but casts a whirlwind instead. Knocks up enemies in a 900 unit line. And then if cast while dashing, area of effect is changed to a 375 radius circle. And then the active, it then repeats. So every third cast shoots out a whirlwind. That knocks people up in the air, which is really important because his ult can only be used when people get knocked up. Wind Wall, his W, this is like a pretty amazing utility skill. This is your 1-point skill on here. Passively generates percentage of maximum flow whenever he uses his other abilities. Active creates a wall of wind that blocks all enemy projectiles except towers. It's pretty amazing. Will block any projectile, so that's ranged auto attacks, any projectile that gets thrown out. They use the example of the champion spotlight of like an Ash arrow and a Misfortune bullet time ultimate. Blocks everything. Pretty amazing. I think we'll see this used in competitive play a lot, just because it is such incredible utility. But that's a 1-point skill. You only need 1 point, and you get pretty much all of the benefit from it. Then his E. His E is pretty crazy. Check out the cooldown. 0.5 seconds goes down to 0.1 second. I think people will level this second, is my guess. Dashes 475 units in direction of the target enemy, deals magic damage, marks them briefly. Each cast increases next dash's base damage by 25% up to 100%, so his 4th consecutive dash will go up to 100% damage and then hits the cap. Here's the one thing, can't use Sweeping Blade on an enemy that's already been marked. So the mark duration starts at 10 seconds, goes down to 6. Basically, you can dash around as much as you want, but you can only hit a target once every 10 seconds. Down to once every 6 seconds. This gives him extremely high mobility. You can use it on champions, can use it on monsters, can use it on the neutral camp minions. In lane, he can just be dashing around like crazy because you can see the cooldown's only a half second and goes down to 1/10 of a second. So basically you can dash around. You're only really limited by the mark duration, not by the cooldown of this ability. You can see in the max damage is, well, pretty darn high, 300% after you've charged it up. Now, granted, this skill's off magic damage. This is magic damage, not physical damage, and Yasuo's going to be built physical, so not his bread and butter damage ability, but in terms of repositioning, movement speed, it's pretty awesome, and it looks like he can go over walls with this too. 475 units is enough to get over a lot of walls. So, pretty nice stuff there. Then his ult is quite interesting. The range is really good. 1300 range is quite far. That's about the range of, it's about roughly the range of a rank 1 Caitlyn ultimate. I think Kate's level 1 ult is like 1500 range, roughly speaking. On a short cooldown, 80 seconds at rank 1, down to 30 seconds at rank 3. That feels way too low, just sort of initial impression. Damage is quite good. It scales off bonus AD, but scales really hard off bonus AD. 1.5 bonus AD ratio, that's pretty good. Anyway, he can only cast this on airborne enemies, can only cast this on people that are knocked up, but hits all airborne units within a 400 range of his target for 1 second, deals physical damage to all of them. Then after he lands, gain 50% penetration to bonus armor, so it makes him really good at cutting through tanks. And it also resets the cooldown on his Q as well. So basically this means Yasuo combos really well with people who can knock people into the air, so they use the example in the champion spotlight of a Malphite ultimate, which knocks people up, a Janna tornado, etc., etc. There's a lot of knock-up skills. Would pair really well with Alistar's Pulverize too. So overall, like I said, I think he's going to be a pretty strong champion. He just has a really high skill cap. He's very fragile. He can be killed quite easily if you're out of position. So really only high skill cap players will be able to use Yasuo to his full extent. Now that said, the competitive scene is full of players that are very, very high skill cap players. So I expect that we'll see them using Yasuo. And like I said, I think he's going to be like Zed. People said Zed was awful when he first came out. And then he dominated the competitive scene throughout Season 3. Will Yasuo do that? I don't know. No, I'm not sure, but on paper, his skills look pretty darn amazing. That much mobility is really good. To just leave it there. Okay, so a little bit about Yasuo, and I will see if I can find some high elo footage of Yasuo and put together a video on him sometime next week, most likely. Okay. Ahri got some very minor buffs. I mean, when I say very minor, I mean very minor. She got 20 extra starting mana, which is nice, but not that big a deal. And base mana regen increased from 6.25 per 5 to 7 per 5. Okay, so she's got a little bit more mana, but it's not much. Let's just leave it there. Not much. All right, Fiddlesticks. Now, the biggest change in this patch in terms of champions is, for whatever reason, Fiddlesticks and Rammus got hit really, really hard. Their 3-second cooldown, 3-second crowd control abilities got hit really, really hard. Oh, maybe I shouldn't have recorded this video now. So Fiddlesticks and Rammus were pretty brutally nerfed in this patch because they're both, like, literally the champion is their 3-second crowd control ability. Alright, so here we go. Q Terrify, this is Fiddlesticks Fear. The duration was reduced from, let's see, it's 1.25 scaling up to 2.25 seconds, and that was from 1 second up to 3. So that's a huge nerf. 3-second Fear down to 2.25. Massive, massive nerf. They make it so it doesn't cost as much mana, but so what? Nobody cares. Fiddlesticks doesn't really have... Well, Fiddlesticks actually does have mana problems, but he tends to be played quite frequently as a jungler and is using the blue buff when he's jungling, so... Not that big of a deal. I mean, that helps, but this is... Let's not kid ourselves. This is a pretty brutal nerf right now. And then the ultimate, his ultimate, they reduced the mana cost to put him more in line with current champion design, which has much lower mana costs. So down to 100 from 250 at max rank. So, excuse me. Sorry about that, guys. Don't know why. Apparently just this morning my throat's bothering me. So overall, I mean, it's a brutal nerf. There's not much more to say. People play Fiddlesticks for the fear. Yes, he still has his ultimate, so he's not totally destroyed, but it's a really harsh nerf. And honestly, it's a bit of a shame because that's what makes Fiddlesticks unique as a champion. Similar thing for Rammus. They did the same thing. They took his taunt and exactly the same thing. Went from 1 second up to 3. Now it's 1.25 up to 2.25 seconds. And they reduced the mana cost. Whoop-de-doo. Rammus has no mana issues, so... That's a total non-starter for Rammus. And they did the same thing with his ult. They reduced the mana cost by 20. Rammus, it's even more puzzling. Like, Fiddlesticks, you can kind of make a case. He's actually a pretty strong jungler right now. But Rammus, not a strong jungler at all. Rarely gets played. Doesn't have a particularly high win rate. So why you would do this nerf to him is just strange. I mean, this is like Rammus becomes trash tier. He's not a good fit for Season 4 jungle to begin with. And he's just had his signature skill nerfed really, really hard. So... I don't know why. I don't get it. I guess they're trying to say that the 3-second taunt was not particularly fun, and maybe that's true, but, I mean, that was Rammus' signature ability. That's pretty much all he had. Nobody played Rammus for anything else other than the taunt, and now it's just been nerfed from, you know, a 3-second taunt down to just an ordinary, like, 2-second taunt, which is... 2-second crowd control is not that big a deal. Everybody's got, you know, there's lots of champions that have crowd control like that. They also changed this too. Defensive ball curl can no longer be deactivated. This is honestly kind of a nerf as well, because being able to control when you turn the defensive ball curl on and off was kind of a big deal. Now it just instantly goes on cooldown when used. Yes, the total cooldown remains unchanged, but there are times when you want to turn off defensive ball curl, and now you can't do that. So I don't really understand that change either. Anyway, this was a brutal patch for Rammus and Fiddlesticks. Really, really hard hits to both of them, which, again, doesn't really make that much sense. Neither one was being picked competitively, and neither one was really that strong in solo queue either. Fiddlesticks maybe, but not really. So, I can't say I understand this. This is a very puzzling change. Doesn't feel like this was needed at all. So, a strange decision, and that's about all I can say. Janna has a slight minor buff here. They have reduced the mana cost of her ultimate at higher ranks. Again, bringing her ult mana cost more in line with current champion design. Fairly minor. Janna is not actually in a great place right now. She is greatly outdone by other supports in the Season 4. There's really no reason to play someone like Annie, and Janna when you could play someone like Annie, is the basic idea. And nobody is playing her in the competitive scene. Not at all. So. Just not really in a strong place. Lee Sin, a very minor change to his W, his safeguard. Now, when he uses his safeguard, he can still jump to minions, but it only shields the target if the ally is a champion. Okay, so minions don't get a shield if he safeguards to them. That's pretty minor. Not much to say there. Yes, you could kind of screw around with people when they're trying to last hit under tower by putting a little shield on a minion. So, pretty minor, but a modest nerf. Sorry, I didn't expect to start coughing when I did this, but I'm halfway through the video. I don't want to stop now. Lucian. Okay, Lucian is basically considered to be the strongest AD in the competitive scene right now. He's seen as the strongest AD. Right now, as I'm recording this, the Battle of the Atlantic is going on, and the promotion tournament for the European LCS. And in this patch, Lucian is being either banned or first picked in pretty much every game. He is seen as the strongest AD. So he's getting nerfs, and they're well deserved. They're pretty serious nerfs, though. Nerfs to his Q. His Q is his strongest ability. They have reduced the damage and reduced it quite significantly. At max rank, it's 200 down from 240. That is a big drop off. I mean, that's what? That's like, what is it? That's a 20% less damage at max rank. That's a pretty big deal. And then this is also pretty harsh nerf too. Reduce the cast range. I mean, yes, it's not by a lot, 570 down to 550, but you know, the casting range is lower, so it's harder for him to do his combo. Basically, the problem was it was just too easy to play Lucian. You walk up to somebody, you Q them, they take a lot of damage, and then you hit them with an auto attack, and they get the Lightbringer passive where you hit them twice. You get the double shot. So one Q and then one auto attack was just doing too much damage, and it was allowing him to just win too many trades. Then Lucian also has really good mobility with his E, and that's why he's been getting played so much. His E and his W. His Ardent Blaze, gives him really good chasing power as well. So Lucian, a little too strong, getting toned down. And I like the fact that Lucian did not have every single ability nerfed. It was just his Q, which is good. So hopefully he'll be in a little bit more balanced state. Lulu getting buffs in here. I'm not sure Lulu really needed them. I thought Lulu was actually in a good place, but apparently somebody likes Lulu. So her passive, her picks, more damage. Now, no, I don't want to either of that to Windows Live. 105 up from 81 at max rank at level 18. So that's kind of nice. She gets more damage on picks. The shield has also been increased at lower ranks. It's actually the same at max rank, 240, but was 80, now 80 at rank 1, up from 60. And then, again, the same thing, her ult changed to 100 mana to be more in line with current champion design, where the ultimates don't cost that much mana to use. I think Riot's idea is that not having enough mana to use your ult is not really all that fun. In other words, it's very different from Dota, where in Defense of the Ancients, the mana costs are very high on pretty much all skills, but Riot kind of wants people to be able to just use their ult whenever they're off cooldown without having to think about it. And you can, there are advantages and disadvantages to that, but that's kind of their philosophy. Alrighty, so buffs to Lulu, not enormous, but, they'll help her out. Might see a little more play. Sivir got very seriously nerfed. I mean, very, very heavy nerfs. Much higher than Lucian, which is a little curious because Lucian is slightly more valued in the competitive scene than Sivir. I don't know. I mean, they're both prioritized about the same, I guess. But Lucian was not hit too hard. I mean, this is a sizable nerf, but not too bad. Whereas Sivir got just about everything nerfed. So let's look here. Passive fleet of foot, movement speed bonus reduced. It is now a scaling bonus on her passive, 30 up to 50 instead of just being 50 at all ranks. So at level 1, that's a massive nerf. You have to get all the way up to 18 to get the functionality back. Spell shield, duration reduced to 1.5 seconds from 3. That is a huge nerf. I can't overstress how big of a nerf this one is. Cut in half the duration of the spell shield. So, I mean, it's a very big nerf. You have to be much more accurate when you're using your spell shield. And Sivir could just use it. It's like, oh, look, I'm about to get ganked by, I don't know, Jarvan or something. He wants to use his ult on me. Oh, I'll just pop on Spell Shield. Now I get 3 seconds to run away, and he can't ult me. Now you have 1.5 seconds to run away. I mean, that's a big nerf. That's probably the biggest nerf out of all the ones here. And then her ult got nerfed as well. Total duration reduced from 10 seconds down to 8 seconds. Enhanced movement speed duration now scales 2, 3, 4 seconds instead of being 4 at all ranks. So you have to be level 16 to get the enhanced movement speed duration. Now they only get bonus movement speed for 2 seconds at level 6 instead of 4. That's a big nerf as well. And the cooldown's increased as well. It's the same at rank 1, but it's 80 at rank 3 as opposed to 60. So across the board, large nerfs to Sivir. I'm not really sure why Riot nerfed 5 things at once instead of just nerfing like 1 or 2. They always do this. That's one of the reasons why when I said Lucian, I thought they did this intelligently to only nerf 1 ability. But no, Sivir, we're going to nerf 5 things at once. Her passive, her spell shield, and then 3 components of her ultimate. I'm not really sure why they don't change like 1 thing and then wait to see the effect, because there's going to be another patch in 2 weeks, and then change 1 more thing again. I never understand why they do this, but they decide to nerf 5 things at once, and we probably won't see Sivir picked as much. I don't know. We'll see. Her Q still deals a lot of damage, but This may or may not be enough to get her to drop out of the competitive scene, but it certainly tones her down a lot. Significantly less. Significantly weaker champion now. Soraka, very minor buffs here. She has more starting armor, which is pretty significant, I guess. She has 4 more starting armor. And her base movement speed went up by 5. Okay. I mean, it's nice, but it's not going to really change how you feel about Soraka. And then Taric, they reduced some of the scaling. Basically, Taric, not really using the competitive scene, but a solo queue superstar, just because he's so easy to play. He's one of the lowest skill cap supports, really simple point-and-click stun, yada yada. And they're basically reducing some of his scaling. So armor reduced on his passive, the armor scaling reduced from 30% down to 20%. And Shatter, they have fixed the aura amount bug. It was actually giving 15%. Bonus scaling off of 15% of his armor, even though it was supposed to be 12, so they fixed that. Armor damage scaling reduced here as well, from 30% down to 20%. It was a little too easy just to stack armor on Taric and get a ridiculous armor aura to the entire team. You might have seen that if you watched the video I did on Taric, where the Taric player built like 400 armor, and then everyone on the team was getting 75 armor, which is absurd, obviously. And then the Shred base values were lowered, and this is actually, well, 5 at each rank. Again, not huge, but, you know, these nerfs add up. And then the Shred armor scaling lowered from 10% of your armor down to 5%. So he scales a lot weaker now, and to be honest, I'm not sure they needed to do all of this. Yes, tone down Taric a little, but that's 5 different nerfs and greatly reduced scaling on Taric's abilities. So, don't think we'll be seeing Taric quite as much. If he was going to break into the competitive scene, that's a lot less likely now. But in solo queue, he's still pretty playable. That said, if you're looking for tanky support, you're probably going to shift maybe away from Taric more towards Leona or towards Thresh as opposed to Taric, because his scaling's been toned down significantly here. You won't get as much from building armor, basically. Alright, minor changes in bug fix. Texture update for Anivia. Brand fixed a bug where the cast range was longer than intended on his E. It was apparently 650. It's intended to be 625. New running animation for Caitlyn. There's also a new running animation for Riven. Not too much to say there. Cho'Gath is Rupture. They have fixed the tooltip. The slow has always been 1.5 seconds, but before the tooltip said 3. So they're just correcting the in-game user interface. If Fiora uses Blade Waltz on, Blade Waltz was not dealing damage to revealed stealth targets. Fiora's had a lot of bugs. Poor Fiora. She never really seems to work the way that was intended. That was, sometimes champions come out and they're a hit or a miss. Like, for example, Orianna was a hit. I think Orianna is one of the best designed champions in the game. She's always been floating around the competitive scene, has always been a viable pick. Fiora was a miss. That champion just didn't work. Quinn, another example. Quinn was a miss as well. Never been used competitively. Yeah, like some champion designs just don't work. I'm sorry, Fiora. It never really happened for you. Okay, Garen, his E, this is his skill that silences. No longer deals reduced damage to monsters. Still reduced versus minions. So, incoming jungle Garen, as people said. And then fixed a bug with his E that was dealing less damage than intended. Lysandra fixed a bug with her ultimate where the slow wouldn't reapply, blah, blah, blah. Maokai's ultimate, the one that causes you to take reduced damage, added a counter showing how much bonus damage Vengeful Maelstrom is storing. That's nice, so you can tell when to trigger it if you want to... it only steals bonus damage up to a cap, so it gives you a better idea of when you want to cancel the ultimate to deal damage. Here's a big change. Now, this is listed in the minor changes in bug fix, but this is one of the biggest changes in this patch. Pantheon W, his Aegis of Zionia, now can be cast on enemy minions and jungle monsters. That's a big change. His Aegis of Zionia is the one where he jumps on something and stuns them briefly. This is where he jumps on someone and hits them with his shield. You can now cast this on enemy minions and jungle monsters. Before, he could only cast this on champions. This is his repositioning ability. So this actually opens up a lot of additional gameplay for Pantheon. Like, this is not a minor change. This is a major change to Pantheon. Way more mobility. Much more mobility. Now you can W onto a minion and then cast your Q, your spear. His spear toss. I don't know the name of that ability. You can use it to go over walls, presumably. If you're close enough to a wall, you have vision on, like, the Wraith camp. You can jump over the wall to hit the Wraith. This is a major buff to Pantheon. Major. So we'll see if we start seeing more Pantheon play. But this is not minor. This is a big change in this patch. And anyone who plays Pantheon has to be extremely happy with this one. All right, Riven updated his running animation, her running animation. Shyvana Flame Breath fixed a bug where Flame Breath was shredding armor in dragon form. Looks like that was due to the way that her ability used to work, but doesn't work anymore. Vayne E Condemn fixed a bug where if the target was being moved by a spell when the projectile hit, Condemn would sometimes not stun on collision with terrain. Blah, blah, blah. Okay. Alright, items. This is a minor little tweak here, but this one actually is a bit significant. Vision items no longer display their current word count to your enemies on the tooltip display. Basically, you could check to see if someone had placed their vision trinket, their word trinket, in the early game. If you highlighted over their word count, you could see, oh, has one of 3 words placed. Obviously, he's put his trinket down. So now that doesn't show up, which is a nice change. So little issue there, but you could tell if someone had used their trinket based on their word count in the early game. So that's a fix to present that. They've changed up the jungle items. They have added the conservation passive. This is the one whereby you get bonus gold over time from killing minion camps. Like over time you charge up gold, and then when you get that gold when you kill a jungle camp. So they've changed away from the Bounty Hunter passive to the Conservation passive on both Spectral Wraith and Outer Lizard. This is a smart change, and one reason why no one was building these items, no one was building Spectral Wraith, no one was building Outer Lizard, was partly because they had this Bounty Hunter passive, and it just wasn't that useful on these items. So this is better. It gives more gold generation, or at least a much more consistent gold generation to these items. So that's a nice change right there. Trinkets, they made some changes to the trinkets. These are good changes right here. So first, the Sweeping Lens. This is the red trinket, the one that removes vision. They reduced the cooldown. Cooldown reduced to 120 from 180. The level 9 version, the Greater Lens, cooldown reduced to 60 seconds from 90. Probably feel it more here, so you can sweep out wards better. And then the Oracle's Lens, the cooldown reduced as well to 60 seconds. True Sight duration reduced to 8 seconds from 10 seconds. This is good. This means people will use the Sweeping Lens more often. I mean, it was kind of silly before that it took 180 seconds at rank 1, you know, at the start of the game. That felt like it was too long, only once every 3 minutes. So somebody puts a ward down and you sweep it out, and then you have to wait 180 seconds before you can do it again. The Sweeping Lens should have a lower cooldown than the word trinket. You know, it should have a lower cooldown, and now it does. And by a pretty sizable margin at once you hit level 9. It's only 60 seconds before you can use it again. So that's awesome. I really like this. And I think we'll see more people taking the lens now, as opposed to when the Season 4 patch first came out and you saw 10 ward trinkets at the start of every game, which was a little silly. That's not really what Riot wanted. The Scrying Orb. Hey, remember that third trinket, the blue one, the one that nobody uses? They've added extra functionality. Enemy champion's hit will be revealed for 5 seconds, and then that's preserved with the Greater Orb and Farsight Orb. And the cast range has been increased. The problem is these orbs are still way too weak. No one's going to use them. I got that right. I don't always get things right when I predict, but I said these orb items, these orb trinkets are really bad. No one's going to use them. The cast range is still too low. The cast range should be global. If they made the cast range global, people would actually use these. They need to increase the amount of time that you get revealed for. The Scrying Orb only reveals what you scry for 1 second. 1 second! Now, yes, if you see a champion, you get vision for 5, but if you don't grab a champion, you don't see anything. And the cast range is still way, way, way too short. Even 3,000 range is not that much. That means 3,000 range means you're in mid and you can scry in bottom lane. That's nice, but what you really want to be able to do is to be able to scry the Dragon or Baron Pit when you're back in your base, and you still can't do that. So no one, I don't see anyone buying these still. Riot, here, what they really should do is just remove Clairvoyance from the game and make this into Clairvoyance, basically. Give it, you know, a 2-minute cooldown, and it's Clairvoyance, basically. That's what it should be. And then supports would actually buy this. But for right now, nobody's going to take this because the Scrying Orb is still too weak, and nobody wants this. All right. Other minor changes, jungle monsters, they are reducing the damage on the Golem, the blue buff and the red buff, Ancient Golem and Lizard Elder. And then the white, they slightly increased the gold. That's pretty minor. Some game flow changes. These are a little bit more significant. Assist gold reward no longer scales up with game time. Now it's capped at 50% of gold reward. Before it went up to 80% of kill reward, which was stupid because an assist was basically equal to a kill in terms of gold, and that was a little silly. Too much gold generation. One thing that if you've been watching the Season 4 games, everybody gets way more gold than Season 3, but in fact, everybody gets too much gold. Everybody's on 6 items at like the 45-minute mark, which is silly. Too much gold. This is a way to scale this down. You're getting way too much gold on assists, and this is a way to cap that so you don't get as much. Also, it's still way too easy to turtle in Season 4. You can just turtle forever in your base. They are trying to do some changes to fix that. Super minions, damage boost to nearby minions increased. Armor, magic resist bonus to nearby minions also increased. The super minions were too weak. There's still one change I hope they get rid of. I hate the fact that the inhibitor towers now regenerate health. I just hate this change. It makes it too easy to stall in the base. It's really hard to chip down towers. Basically, as long as you can stall out a push in the base, you can just keep them there, keep the enemy team there almost forever. The inhibs come back way too fast. They come up back in 4 minutes instead of 5. The inhib towers regenerate health. The inhibitors, when inhibs down, the super minions don't push in side lanes anymore. All that stuff just makes it way too easy to turtle in the base. And turtling games are not fun to watch. I don't know why Riot would want to do this. It's not fun to watch a team that's way behind turtling and stretching the game out and stretching it out. It doesn't make for good gameplay. So this is a change that's to try and fix that. I hope they revert some of the other changes. I really dislike the fact that inhib turrets regenerate health. Just detest that change. And I hope that gets changed back. Howling Abyss, everybody now gets Poro snacks instead of trinkets. That will be, I think people will enjoy that. People like the Poro snacks, but I don't play RM. Masteries, they changed the Martial Mastery and Arcane Mastery so that it is 4 AD instead of 5 and 6 AP instead of 8. I don't think these are really that great. I thought they were kind of weak already, to be honest. Now they're even weaker. Again, just kind of gearing people away from the offensive tree. Still feel like the defensive tree might be just better in a lot of ways. Perseverance. Perseverance was the strongest mastery in the defensive tree. It was actually pretty ridiculous. Restored 1, 2, 3% missing health every 5 seconds. They have lowered that. Now it's only 2% missing health every 5. Still really good. Still should try to get this wherever possible, but not quite as absurd as it was before. And then Legendary Guardian, which was the Tenacious Mastery and was misnamed. Apparently they gave it the wrong name. Required range to gain bonus armor and MR reduced to 700 from 900. So that's a nerf there as well. But these are still the 2 best masteries in the defensive tree. So you'll still take them on any, you'll still take these on anyone who's going defensive spec. But they're a little bit weaker than they were before. And then finally they've updated the summoner spells. Let's see, they're going to actually change the summoner spells in the next patch, but for right now they've updated the icons. Now, this is also kind of an issue. Let me go ahead and show you what these look like if you haven't seen. The biggest issue is, yeah, the artwork's fine, but the problem is the summoner spells look too much alike. If you check out Barrier, looks like Flash, which looks like Ignite, which looks like Smite. They all have a reddish-orange color to them, like sort of a red, orange, brownish color to them. They look too similar. It's very difficult to distinguish them. And yes, I get the idea. Over time, people will get used to the icons, but they look too similar, and that's kind of a problem. I personally don't like the look very much, to be honest, but forget the look for the moment. The problem is they look too similar. Now, yes, here you might say, well, they don't look that much alike. I can see them. Well, on the screen, they don't show up this big. When they're on the screen, they look like this, right? This is what they look like. And when Barrier looks like this, it looks too much like Flash, looks too much like Ignite, looks too much like Smite. I mean, look at Barrier and Smite. When they're really small, can you kind of tell these apart? I mean, I guess so, but they're pretty similar. They're the same color, and Flash is the same color as well. Now, they haven't updated it here on League of Legends Wiki down here. I haven't updated it down there, but, Flash really looks like Barrier. I mean, they look really similar. And then Exhaust haven't updated the Exhaust particle yet either. But, I mean, again, the problem is, Smite, Flash, Barrier, they're all sort of this yellowish, brownish color, and it's very hard to distinguish them when they're small, little, tiny icons on the screen. So, kind of a thumbs down there. Nothing wrong with the artwork, but you need to do something to distinguish them. You've got a full color palette. Make them look different enough so people don't get them confused. So don't really like that. I would prefer to stick with the old artwork if I had the choice, but of course I don't have the choice because this is like the MMO version aspect of League of Legends. The game changes all the time, and even if you like things in the past, you can't really hold on to them because the game changes. Anyway, not too much going on. Aren't any big drastic changes in this patch. Just sort of minor tweaks. For the most part, they look pretty good. I will say the biggest disappointment is the Fiddlesticks and Rammus changes. I really don't think those are necessary. and I think that they're an overkill. But overall, not that big a deal, not that big of a change, and, you know, life goes on. In any case, as I said, I will try to find Yasuo footage going forward and see if I can find a game of that, which hopefully will be up soon. In any case, until then, hope everybody's having a good weekend. Hope everybody's enjoying as we ramp up closer to the holidays here. And until next time, see you guys later. Have a good one.